here has watched the new Mean Girls movie? Well, for those of you who don't know, the new Mean Girls movie was released with high anticipations due to the popularity of the original movie. However, when I watched it, it felt lazy and dull. Even with the vivid colors and the frequent songs, it was boring. It didn't bring anything new to the table and rather felt like a lackluster imitation of the original movie. In recent years, new movies just don't feel as fresh or unique anymore. And this seems to be the trend across various media, such as songs and books as well. Every song I listen to seems to be sampling another. Every book has the same plot, and every other movie just brings you deja vu. It's as if imagination has been drained and stolen from us, forcing us to retell the same stories over and over again. It's not that we've already exhausted the good ideas or that creativity is dying, but rather our dedication to creating these stories has been slowly decelerating. We no longer have the drive and motivation to improve our storytelling, but rather focus on how to make them easily digestible and commercial. With rapid technological advancements, especially with the popularization of AI and replacement of human authenticity, we've put stories aside due to the misconception that stories, especially old ones, are irrelevant to modern issues. A myth is classified as a traditional or legendary story. However, in contemporary context, it is often used synonymously with lies. Mythology, or a collection of myths, is the backbone of our storytelling methods. So, to understand stories, we must first delve into mythology. From the earliest civilizations, myths were created to explain natural phenomena. These myths were called atheological myths. They didn't always have to make perfect scientific sense, but were the atlases people use to navigate through life. Common stories in ancient Greek or Egyptian mythology like to use personification to understand natural occurrences. They also tend to morph the ocean, death, and the sun as primordial beings. They also tend to materialize emotions and actions into physical entities, such as love, beauty, and intelligence. Furthermore, every ancient civilization had a creation myth. These myths were myths to explain the creation of the world. They also had many similarities across different mythologies, such as that the world was born from chaos, which we found to be not too far from the scientific explanation of Big Bang Theory. However, it doesn't matter if these myths were right or wrong. The purpose of these myths was to morph these confound concepts into individuals that connect and make sense of our world. To paint a better picture, let's look at one of the most recognized Greek myths of all time, Queen of the Underworld. One day, Persephone, the goddess of spring and the daughter of Demeter, the goddess of agriculture, was kidnapped by the king of the underworld, Hades. When Demeter found out, she was struck with grief, causing all the crops to die. Everyone was starving, and humans were literally on the brink of extinction when Demeter finally found where Persephone was. But there was a catch. While being held captive, Persephone ate a handful of pomegranate seeds from the underworld, forcing her to remain bound to this realm for the rest of eternity. But to prevent all humans from famine, Demeter and Hades struck a deal. Persephone would spend the first half of her year in the upper world with Demeter, and the latter half in the underworld with Hades. Every 6 months, her return to Demeter will mark the start of spring, as once again, Demeter will be overjoyed and willing to fertilize the soil. But Her departure would mark the start of autumn, as the meter would be struck with grief once again, and all the crops would die. Stories such as the tale of Persephone was one of the many ways ancient civilizations rationalized these confound concepts. For them, stories were an integral part of their civilization, acting like a manual of sorts, helping them navigate through life. Likewise, these myths were able to stand the test of time with their intricate and accurate depictions of human behavior. Characters, especially gods and goddesses, embody core human traits, both admirable and imperfect ones. How Pandora in Greek mythology represents our curiosity, how Aphrodite, or Venus, in Greek and Roman mythology epitomizes our vanity, how Loki in Norse mythology represents our need for amusement, and how Seth in Egyptian mythology demonstrates humans' thirst for power. Myths purposely follow these flawed and multidimensional characters so that they're relatable to us, humans. Though they're considered gods and goddesses, these gods and goddesses are usually the most insufficient in these stories. The lustful Zeus, the reckless Ares, and the jealous Aphrodite all have undeniable faults that make them far from perfect. How they react to situations, their personalities and habits all seem to mimic human behavior, because they were made by humans to understand, well, humans. So, human civilization has been encircled in the same questions over the centuries. Why do we love and why do we grieve? Why are we so curious yet lazy, so doubtful yet trusting? Mystical characters illustrate what it means to be human. The various dimensions and the countless flaws, from heroes to gods, they're all tools to understand the mankind and the mysteries of our psyche. As humanity continues to evolve, all methods of comprehending the world is scorned upon, and it is seen as illogical. With modern emphasis on empirical knowledge that is based on observation and evidence rather than theory, myths have faded into the background. Myths often include mystical elements, which is the primary reason why people describe them for their importance. Yes, myths don't follow Newton's laws of motion, and yes, multiple mythological characters have bred with horses. So why are myths like birds hanging off of humanity's pants? Well, because everything we know today stems from myths and their archetypes. You may have heard of Swiss psychiatrist and psychoanalyst Carl Jung, known for his discoveries of the collective unconsciousness and coining the term archetypes, which both heavily draws on from mythology. He believed that myths were an expression of a culture or society's goals, fears, aspirations, and dreams. Myths were like the proxy records of literature, preserving evidence of the history of human civilization. Archetypes are used across all types of media to resonate with the audience, creating an immediate sense of familiarity or déjà vu. However, unfortunately, in today's media, we tend to only scratch the surface when taking archetypes. A common archetype, the hero, has a total of 2 traits, brave and reckless, in every movie or show. Archetypes are supposed to be a set of instructions, kind of like the base of a pizza, where you add your own toppings to personalize a character, not a pre-made pizza you could just slap on the table and go. By reusing the same character formats, stories become repetitive and dull. Have you ever wondered why no one can agree on which version of ancient myths is the most accurate? Well, because there are different versions. There are multiple different versions of these myths. As the ancient civilizations had to constantly update them to create them, make them interesting, and constantly different from the older versions. Which is precisely what modern artists are doing today. Modern artists are taking these archetypes and creating them into something new and fresh. Myths were meant to be changed, to constantly apply to the ever-changing humanity. In their original context, they're unnatural and confusing to us. But when translated into something people from the 21st century would relate to, the messages often becomes obvious. Common examples of these reincarnated myths include the superhero comics, such as Marvel and DC. A common character, Loki from Marvel, was heavily inspired by the Norse god Loki, while a subtler example would be Joker from DC, who was also inspired by the Norse god Loki. All of them are the causes of chaos, mayhem, and also the catalysts of change in their societies. By reading or watching these adaptations, we're able to grasp the same universal messages as its ancient counterparts, like greed, pride, power, and family. We often find ourselves wearing the same critical lenses as the people in the ancient civilizations, with the only exception being differing contexts. In Greek myths, Daedalus and Icarus, a pair of father and son was imprisoned off a tower in Crete. Daedalus was a genius inventor, so he took inspiration from the birds flying above, collected the fallen feathers, and glued them together with wax to make 2 pairs of wings. He told his son Icarus, "Don't fly too high to the sun, or else the wings will melt, but not fly too low, or else the wings would become too dense and you would sink." Following their takeoff, Icarus, feeling the ecstasy of being the first boy to fly, flew higher and higher until the wax from his wings melted from the heat of the sun and sent Icarus plummeting to his death. From a third-person perspective, Icarus might seem foolish and reckless and impulsive, but once we translate the context into something people from the 21st century would relate to, the lines of rationality and arrogance blurs. A common example that I, probably along with the rest of this room, relate to is procrastination. We've been taught and constantly reminded of the harms of procrastination, yet we can't seem to stop ourselves. Too familiar with the phrase, "I'll do it tomorrow," and knowing better than anyone else that I, in fact, won't do it tomorrow. I leave things to do until the very last minute to experience the adrenaline of rushing through and the later satisfaction of completing something in the least amount of time possible. Just like Icarus ignored his father's warnings, we've ignored the warnings we've received on our way and do as we please. Too arrogant in our abilities to juggle our tasks, we eventually don't reach our expectations. Both scenarios deal with overestimating our abilities and risk-taking. Risk-taking is embedded into our consciousness. The feeling of adrenaline and the concepts of might or might not is what motivates our brains. Just like how we are almost addicted to procrastination and how Icarus was obsessed with flight. We are constantly doing things that we know are destructive, yet it's embedded into our consciousness. No matter if it was 2,000 years ago or now, stories teach us about the world around us. They hold boundless value to society and hold unique perspectives on purpose, identity, and societal evolution. They also bring insight into current global issues that we're facing today. The story of Persephone is a great illustration of how women are oppressed and their decisions undermined by society. When Persephone was taken away and forced to marry someone she doesn't even know, depicts the powerless as a woman in a patriarchal society and how their voices are almost always disregarded. However, they also bring insight in how we can solve these issues. Just like how Demeter was unceasingly searching for her daughter, there are people today that are willing to raise their voices to help others in need. Storytelling has been an art integral to human development and has been trying to master over the centuries. From ancient civilizations to modern times, it will always be something that is changing. With the spotlight on technology, we have put stories on the back burner of society. However, it is when our world undergoes unprecedented change that we need to realize the little things that stories and myths bring us. Just like how it was used as a guide in ancient times, it can help us navigate through modern society. As we continue to embroider our fantastic victories and our terrible tragedies into our myths, we grant them the ability to transcend time and place into the future. Thank you.